What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So with the end of the year, it's kind of fun to look back at these older phones and everything. And when I was looking back at 2019 phones, I'm like, bro, the S10, S10e, S10 Plus were crazy phones. And we kind of already know with those phones, the depreciation was crazy. Within the first like 2-3 months, we've already seen like 40% of it depreciating, which is pretty insane. But then I was curious to see what these phones could sell next year. So I looked at the Galaxy S9 Plus and the Galaxy S9, both of them, and I saw, dude, those phones are selling for super cheap. Like, just thinking that next year, within a couple months, the Galaxy S10, once the S11 comes out, will be at around the same prices as the S9 and S9 Plus are currently selling for is pretty crazy. And for a Galaxy S9 Plus, you can buy those for around $200, $200 to $250. And for that price, the Galaxy S9 Plus is a crazy good deal. That is such a humongous value of a phone that you're getting for just a couple $100. There's a lot of budget phones. There's plenty of phones that I've seen and bought around that like $300, $400 price range that are not even as good as a 2018 phone like the Galaxy S9 Plus, man. So first of all, I just want to say it's still getting supported with software. This thing is getting One UI 2 officially, which is really, really nice. The Galaxy S8 unfortunately did not get that, but we're still at least getting like another year of support out of the S9 Plus. I don't think it's getting Android 11. It's going to get security updates here and there, but for the time being, it is getting One UI 2, which is really nice. So once that officially comes out, of course, I'm going to make a review about it and everything. But talking about the software, there's still tons of different custom ROMs for this thing, including Lineage OS, which is really, really cool. I would honestly, at the end of the day, I would highly recommend you guys flashing a custom ROM if you're into that. Like if you're capable of doing it, that is something that can take your phone going from like a stockish like 6 or 7 out of 10 phone to like a 9 out of 10 phone. You're getting that software experience, updated software for the most part, stock Android, which is really nice, as well as a ton of cool features. One UI 2 is really nice, but for the S9 Plus, with its capability and its performance, a stock Android custom ROM would be really, really nice. And there's a ton available for this phone because it is older. It did have kind of a large development community, so that's a humongous thing right there for a phone that only costs a couple $100. You're getting that much of a development community behind it, which is really nice. Also, kind of the way it looks, the screen is still extremely good. Like, it's pretty much up there with the Galaxy S10 Plus or even like the Note 10 and the Note 10 Plus screen. I think it's better than the Note 10 screen, but about the same as the 10 Plus screen. It's 1440p, very sharp, very good. All around across the board, it's a very, very good display. I have nothing, to say against it. Even compared to like my iPhone 11 Pro or 11 Pro Max screen, I noticed that the S9 Plus is still a very, very good panel at the end of the day. And also, dude, the performance, it's still very good. I've talked about this on my full in-depth review that I did, twice this year. The Snapdragon 845 isn't that bad. I think a lot of people hate on it, but I think it's really good across the board. This phone also has 6 gigabytes of RAM, which is pretty decent for this phone and kind of future-proofing it. The Galaxy S8 only had 4 gigabytes of RAM. That I can kind of understand why it might not be the best performing, whatever. The S9 Plus definitely is not the best performing phone, but for the price that you're paying this for, it's a pretty decent phone. I mean, there's a lot of phones out there. I mean, even the Pixel 3 and 3 XL that came out last year, those have 4 gigabytes of RAM. A lot of phones out there, I think, that at least have 6 gigabytes of RAM. You're kind of future-proofing yourself. The S10 has 8, so yes, that one is better, but it's not that far off. So performance-wise, really, I haven't had any issues with it. It's been perfectly fine. Some of the issues that I've really only had were with the software themselves that I've also seen on other versions of phones like the S10 and S10e, so it's really not that big of a deal. The performance is one of the biggest advantages for this phone. Also, looking at the back, that dual camera setup really did kind of future-proof this phone. You have two 12 megapixel sensors, which is really, really nice. You can shoot 4K videos at up to 60 frames per second, which even the Google Pixel 4 cannot do, and that's a humongous advantage for the Galaxy S9 Plus. Photos look really great, videos look really great, and because you do have that 4K at up to 60, you're kind of future-proofing yourself because a lot of phones probably won't go up to 4K at 120 anytime soon, at least not until next year, maybe, I don't know. But you still have that capability on the S9 Plus, which is super, super nice. And even the battery life, it has a 3500 mAh battery, which is pretty good for a phone that only costs $200 something. Yes, it's probably degraded a little bit since its release, and it's not like a 4500 mAh battery or anything like that, but it's still a pretty respectable size for this type of phone. It's a pretty big phone, so it has a pretty decent sized battery in it. And I think the battery life is probably one of its pros. It's definitely more of a pro than a con for sure. Also, talking about future proofing, this phone still has the micro SD card slot, which is an amazing feature. One of my favorite things about this phone at the end of the day. It's one of my coolest little things that I like about this phone. And any older Samsung phone, or even a lot of older phones in general, a lot of phone manufacturers have taken away the micro SD card slot. But this phone still has that capability. Hopefully the S11 will have that capability too. At the end of the day, it's one of my favorite things about older Samsungs, and this phone especially. You can go get the base model, which has the same amount of RAM across the board in terms of storage variant, and then go ahead and just pop in a terabyte of an SD card in it and be set. And that's something that I have mad respect for Samsung for keeping it in there and allowing us to put that in there, which is really, really cool. Also, looking at the bottom of this phone, you have a USB Type-C port, which is pretty much future-proofing yourself again for a phone that only costs $270. You have this capability of not only using that USB Type-C port for all those cool things, and different I/O things that you can do with this specific phone with USB Type-C ports, but also Samsung DeX. That's a really, really cool thing. I think it's super underrated. I personally don't use it, but I think it's a pretty viable option for a lot of people who don't want to use a computer or can't afford a full-on computer and want to substitute their phone for that. That's a really, really awesome thing, and this phone supports it. Also, IP68 dust and water resistance, you have that on this phone, and also a fingerprint sensor. I personally do like a physical fingerprint sensor on the back of this phone. The S10s is a little weird. It's been through a lot of drama recently, but this phone does have that capability of having that fingerprint sensor right on the back, which is super awesome. And also, dude, to kind of wrap it up, the build quality, it still feels like $1,000 phone. It does not feel like a cheap phone at all. I've had a lot of cheap phones. I've had a lot of cheap, budget phones throughout all these years, and yes, the cheaper phones have been getting better and better, but whatever. To think that this phone costs $200 or $250 or however much you're going to pay for it, the fact that it costs that much is completely crazy to me, considering if you even look at the Galaxy A series, those phones are selling for even more than a used S9 Plus brand new, and I would still rather have a used S9 Plus than a brand new Galaxy A50 or whatever, A20 even, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, dude, all for about $200, you can pick up an S9 Plus, around $200, $250. You might be even luckier and get even one for cheaper than that. It's an awesome phone for the price, and there's not that many brand new budget phones or even brand new phones that can compete with this value per dollar. If I was on a budget, I would 100% pick up a Galaxy S9 Plus. This is a crazy good phone for the price, and it might be one of the best value per dollar older phones, used phones that you can buy right now. So I also have one other thing to say about the Galaxy S9 Plus. Like I said, the future of this phone, it's really kind of crazy. There's really not too much people saying about whether it's going to get Android 11 or not. Like I stated in the beginning of this video, it's kind of 50-50. If I had to say it, I'm probably going to say no. I said early on in this video, it's probably not going to get it, especially when we saw that the Galaxy S8, that was not getting Android 10, even though I kind of stated Samsung may be able to do it, they may not be. It was really, really 50-50 at the time. But what I will tell you right now is that the Galaxy S9 and S9 Plus, I think, have a higher chance of getting the next version of Android than the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus. And it might just be me saying it might just be me wanting it to happen and maybe not, but realistically speaking, Samsung seeing that backlash of oh my god, the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus, is it going to get it, is it not? And then a ton of fans wanting it to get it and then end up not getting it. A lot of people were upset about that, and for me to kind of say that it's 50-50, that's probably the best way of going about it. But probably it's not going to get it. But if I had to say it, I think the S9 and S9 Plus will probably, if there were phones that were going to get the next version or start the trend of more phones getting more software versions, I think the S9 and S9 Plus should be up there in my opinion. If you look at Samsung's history, there was a time where they really only had one or two phones, and they had to kind of keep supporting the software for those specific ones. And I think especially in this day and age, we're starting to see Apple really supporting the iPhone 5S and iPhone 6 on iOS 12 still, even though iOS 12 is, technically unsupported. iOS 13 is the newest version now, but Apple is still supporting those specific older phones, which is super, super important for the longevity of these phones. And if Samsung actually went ahead and supported their older generation of phones, I think Samsung's reputation and Android's reputation of software updates could really, totally flip. I think if Samsung were to just support the S9 and S9 Plus to the next version of Android, I think they could definitely have a hit on their hands. Really, it's up in the air. We don't know 100% for a fact, but I think, like I said, there's more of a chance that the S9 and Galaxy S9 Plus, specifically the S9 Plus for this video, there's more of a chance that those phones will be getting these versions of Android, or at least being supported longer than the last generation. So that kind of makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. that is pretty much it, guys. If you have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. If you want to pick up a Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus, I'll find the cheapest one on Amazon, and I'll link it down straight in the description below so you guys can get it from there and help support the channel at the same time. Hit that subscribe button if you guys enjoyed the video. I'm trying to get to 200k by the end of this year. It might happen, it might not. It's really like 50-50 at this point, but it means so much if you guys could hit that. Check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.